What up, though? Welcome to another edition of Morning Minute here on the Catch This Fade Podcast Network. Very appreciative of you joining us. I want to talk about something that, really haven't had a chance to dive into because there's been so much going on, so many distractions away from the start of the season, the start of training camp, and hopefully a full NFL regular season. Mike McCarthy took over for the team. There was a lot of kind of just weirdness going on with the Cowboys and their coaching search. When they wouldn't fire Jason Garrett, they let his contract expire, and then they went through the little coaching search, which was pretty much a song and dance because they obviously had their sights set on McCarthy, who spent the year away from the team. So I wanted to talk about some of the reasons why things may not go according to plan. Everybody's hopeful that the transition, the team pretty much seemed to not necessarily quit on Garrett, but it was just an absolute mess in 2019. Coaches fighting with each other, coaches fighting with players, the team just kind of being in disarray all around, ending up in 8-8, even though they were a very talented team and they had one of the best quarterback performances in team history. So a lot of people are looking at Mike McCarthy's involvement in the team and taking over as kind of being something that's worth multiple wins. Myself personally, I said that I think Mike McCarthy himself is worth 2 wins. I think that moving on from Jason Garrett and what they did last year is worth another 2 wins. So that easily puts you in the 11-5, 12-4 kind of scenario. But there's other things that are involved that might be a bigger issue than just what's happening with the coaching staff, and it could affect the coaching staff. Number one, we don't know the real story of how things ended in Green Bay. We know that he was there for a long time, 13 seasons. Him and Aaron Rodgers clearly got tired of each other. No matter the bouquets that they send to each other, we know what happened. But Aaron Rodgers has proven to be a pretty difficult guy. He had fight against what the new head coach did in Green Bay, and they ended up having a great regular season record, even though it was a little bit inflated. But you saw that when the new coach took over in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers had some pushback on some of the techniques that he was implementing. So I'd probably lean more towards Aaron Rodgers being a diva than the problem of being the coaching with Green Bay. So I'll give McCarthy a pass, but there is some concern that the wear and tear on him, the 1 year away from the game, really didn't do the kind of magic that we're hoping to kind of rejuvenate him. He said that he spent the offseason studying film, learning more about analytics, and he was already a very, a risk-centric kind of coach. He goes for it on 4th down. He passes early. He does all of the things that you want a modern coach to do. But there is still going to be a little bit level of concern about how things ended in Green Bay and whether the time away from the game really did him as good as he claims it did. The biggest thing for me is number 2. Coronavirus stole the offseason, and when you're dealing with a new coach, you really need to get that guy in place to be able to be around the team, interact with the players, implement his system and his culture around the team. The Cowboys haven't had the opportunity to do that, and compared with the other teams in their division, they are okay when it comes to Washington and New York, the teams that were behind them, because they have new head coaches as well, and they're in the same situation. But the Philadelphia Eagles have the same head coach, the same system, the same basically everything, except for their wide receiver core. And they're going to be in a better position to have navigated this off season without having that interaction between coach and player. Is it a roadblock, or is it a stumbling block? That's really what the main question is. I would lean more towards it being a stumbling block because so many teams in the league are in the same position, and not every team is well coached. We all know that, but the Eagles are. The Eagles are a well coached team. You saw them go to and win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, and you can't say anything, bad about their coaching staff, except for the fact that the quarterback coach and the offense coordinator might not be the same as when they won back then. But overall, Doug Peterson knows how to run an organization. So I would have to say that they get the benefit of the doubt about being able to navigate the offseason compared to where the Cowboys are with the new coaching regime. Now, looking beyond that, the previous Super Bowl winning head coaches that have taken over organizations, on the surface, they've been pretty good. 10 out of the 15 former Super Bowl winning coaches got into a new situation and improved their team from the previous year. So there's a lot of hope to go from 8-8 to a possible playoff berth for the Dallas Cowboys. The kind of downside to that is that when a Super Bowl winning coach took over a team that was mediocre within 2 games plus or minus of 8-8, things didn't go as well. Now, 5 of the 6 times that happened, the team regressed as opposed to going forward. The caveat is, in most of those instances, the team was not carrying over the quarterback from the previous regime. For some reason, when it had to do with Super Bowl winning head coaches taking over a new organization, there wasn't a franchise quarterback in place like there is with Dak Prescott. And I know we're getting close to the deadline on the long-term deal, but Prescott will definitely be the Cowboys quarterback for the 2020 season. He's already signed the tender, so there's no worries about him not being in training camp. He is going to be there whenever training camp starts, hopefully in a couple weeks. The last thing that I'm worried about is something that's kind of outside of McCarthy's control, and that's Jerry Jones' silence when it came to the racial protests, the Black Lives Matter movement, and basically giving a mea culpa about his stance on kneeling during the anthem. He hasn't said any of that, and it's kind of interesting that the only people that have come out and spoken against him on the team are Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe. They're free agent signings. They've never worked under the Cowboys structure, and they're kind of being the ones that are leading the voice. The people that kind of spoke up previously back in 2017 when Jerry Jones made that edict are gone. Orlando Scandrick was really the main voice that voiced his dissent over the rule that the Cowboys couldn't kneel during the national anthem to show their peaceful protest against police brutality. Now we're dealing with a situation where it's a brand new culture, new head coach, new players are in the mix, and you just kind of wonder if anything happens during the season when it comes to the kneeling or just general, team chemistry. How will that affect McCarthy when he hasn't had a chance to work with the team leaders, the locker room leaders, the culture leaders of the organization? Having that time over the summer to kind of get a feel for who's who in the locker room, now he's basically relying on the front office's take on who he needs to deal with, and some of that will obviously come to fruition and bubble up to the top as soon as training camp hits. You can tell a leader immediately when you're in a room and when you start to interact with them, but not having the time to build that rapport over the offseason is a little bit unsettling, thinking that there could be some outside influences that affect how Mike McCarthy can lead this team. So that's it. Those are my 4 biggest concerns for how things are going to go with Mike McCarthy as he starts on his journey as a Cowboys head coach. Hopefully a lengthy tenure that's filled with a lot of playoff appearances and some Super Bowl victories, but there are some things that we need to be concerned about heading into this new season. You know what it is. Wear a damn mask, you coward.